As a leading outfit in professional wrestling, WWE's constantly attracted the best in-class athletes to its talent pool, from the heady heights of Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat during the Golden Era to the most modernistic Penta and Io Sky. Unfortunately, however, not every hopeful WWE signee has the tools needed to become a WWE superstar, either because they lack an understanding of the fundamentals or they forgot how to structure a sentence when handed a microphone, or it could be a combination of the two. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 WWE wrestlers who had zero ability. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. Number 10. Eva Marie. Starting as we mean to go on, Eva Marie was such a glaringly obvious example of somebody who just didn't get wrestling. Her selling was sloppy, her offense wasn't any better, and she astonishingly displayed zero signs of development across her original 4-year stint in WWE. So what did WWE do? Well, they brought her right back. In what appeared to be a desperate attempt to drive ratings based solely on the notion that every wrestling fan loves a surprise return, Eva Marie briefly returned to WWE in 2021, and the only difference was that her hair was now dyed pink. She was still the drizzling between the ropes, incapable of wrestling even the most basic of wrestling matches with Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam, and she was mercifully canned within 5 months of her resurfacing. Vince McMahon has been known to back some of the absolute dirt worst wrestlers, and his consistent support of Eva Marie is still one of the most questionable things he's ever done as a wrestling promoter. Number 9. Nicole Bass. Like Eva Marie, it's surprising that Vince McMahon didn't award Nicole Bass with the Women's Championship. It's not as if that title meant anything during the Attitude Era, a period that saw Harvey Whippleman win the title under his drag queen guise of Hervina. At a recorded 6'4" and 231 pounds, the imposing New Yorker had only a brief spell in WWF, debuting at WrestleMania 15 in March of '99 and departing that July following a largely forgotten allegation she made of sexual misconduct. But despite her 5 months of fame occurring during an era in which everybody found a way to get over, Nicole still struggled, as her matches regularly fell apart due to her general clunkiness. However, it wasn't her in-ring abilities that grounded her career, it was the constant comparisons to Chyna. Both stood out from the rest of the pack in the women's locker room at the time, going against the stereotypical presentation by wrestling identically to their male counterparts, but it was only Chyna who actually made it work. As a non-wrestling heavy for Sable, Nicole Bass could have made a bigger impact, but allowing her between the ropes exposed her biggest weakness. Number 8. The Harris Brothers. An immediate indicator of a terrible wrestler is if the statistics section on their Wikipedia write-up contains more ring names than their actual accolades. This is usually a sign that a wrestler has undergone constant repackaging jobs, struggling to find their footing in the treacherous industry that disposes of its waste before it's even had time to ripen. That analogy, as convoluted as it may sound, may also best describe the Harris Brothers. Active between 1987 and 2005, the twins regularly failed to make a lasting impression. They cycled from one muddy gimmick to the next, with the casting as the Blue Brothers and the Disciples of Apocalypse in the WWF, and as one of the worst tag team names ever in WCW, known as Creative Control. They highlighted how their height was their only saving grace. At 6'5" each, Vince McMahon presumably foamed at the mouth before realizing how limited they were when tasked with applying a simple wrist lock. Together, Don and Ron managed 3 reigns with the WCW World Tag Team Championships, but they're more remembered for that god-awful Gang War storyline with the Los Boricuas in 1997. Oh, and that time they rocked up on the TNA card wearing gear that proudly displayed the logo of the SS. What the hell was that all about? Number 7. Giant Silva. Another towering buffoon from WWE infamy, Giant Silva was at least cast to be a towering buffoon. Unlike the Harris Brothers, Silva was there to be laughed at, not to be taken seriously as a faux biker or whatever the hell they were meant to be as the Blue Brothers. He spent the bulk of his time in the WWF as a member of the Oddities, though he was more commonly the cornerman for his stablemates rather than an active wrestler. That statement alone speaks volumes to how dreadful a wrestler he really was. If you're viewed as not being good enough to wrestle when, of all people, Kurgan was, then you may as well throw your wrestling boots right in the bin. Giant Silva's most notable match as an Oddity was a bleak handicap match from the 1998 SummerSlam, where he partnered with Kurgan and Gayda to squash Kaientai. Silva was out of the company by the following February and had a surprisingly lengthy stint wrestling in Japan, but he had no right sharing a locker room with the greats of the Attitude Era. Not even his overpowering 7'2" stature could save him from the wrath of a Vince McMahon-mandated Future Endeavors phone call. Number 6. David Flair. Entering any entertainment industry that your family has already dominated should set you up for immediate success. It certainly did so for Charlotte Flair at least. Joining WWE in 2013, the Queen has grown to become one of the most influential performers in industry history, and while her natural athleticism and charisma massively helped shape her path to the top, you'd be remiss to say that her surname didn't help her out at the beginning. Sadly, the same couldn't be said about her brother David. It's well known that he had no aspirations to follow his father's footsteps, but alas, he laced up his first pair of boots in 1999 for what was supposed to be a one-off match in WCW. What followed were reigns with both the United States and World Tag Team Championships, a dire heel turn on his father, and the title of the most ill-fitting member of the NWO. He probably realized that being a pro wrestler was actually quite a neat job when you have nepotism to boost your standing. But when WCW was bought out in 2001, David actually jumped over to the WWE, though he spent more of his time in OVW, the company's developmental league at the time, than on the main roster. In fact, all he did on mainstream programming was getting beaten up by The Undertaker ahead of Taker's showdown with Ric Flair at Wrestlemania 18. Still, you only gotta look at his Titantron to know how much faith WWE had in him. Number 5. The SWAT Team. Being morbidly overweight isn't always a write-off as a professional wrestler, as there have been several super heavyweight performers such as Yokozuna and Giant Haystacks. They've all used their size to their advantage, but it certainly was a write-off in the case of the SWAT Team. Better known as the Headhunters, the real-life Santiago twins wrestled just about everywhere, and they even had mammoth runs overseas in Japan and Mexico. However, it was in the WWF during the dying days of the New Generation era that the brothers were placed on the biggest stage, being involved in the 1996 Royal Rumble. They waddled out alongside other spot fillers like Takeo Omori and Doug Gilbert, but unlike those two, both SWAT Team members were quickly sent packing even before the arrival of the next entrant. They made zero impact on fans, but no doubt a lasting impact on the ring that they were standing in, as combined they weighed 652 pounds. It was such a pointless pair of entrants, so obviously done because nobody else was available, but since it was the Royal Rumble, you at least remember it. The same couldn't be said about their re-debut 1 year later as the Arabian Butchers, which saw them target Owen Hart and the British Bulldog in an angle that was dropped quicker than their respective Royal Rumble participation times. Number 4. Eva. The WWE had every right to push Eva to the moon from the off. As a daughter of The Rock, she was the company's first fourth-generation wrestler, and considering how much they have screamed about second and third-gen athletes like Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, strapping a rocket to Eva seemed like a no-brainer, especially if she possessed even an ounce of her father's panache. Well, she didn't. Instead, her in-ring career flopped hard, as a spot in Joe Gacy's Schism faction was a poor fit for her, while the other 3 matches she had on NXT programming ranged from between passable, crap, and horrendous. Eva's solitary redeeming trait is that she was somewhat acceptable as the NXT general manager. She wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, especially given that she was serving alongside Adam Pearce on Raw and Nick Aldis on SmackDown, both of whom are complete naturals. But compare it to her time as a wrestler and it's night and day. Her match with Ivy Nile from Heatwave 2023 is still one of the worst matches that the brand has ever produced. Number 3. Zeus. Since the dawn of time, WWE has frequently lured performers from other backgrounds to try their hand at pro wrestling, with Ronda Rousey and Logan Paul among the most successful to make the switch. In 1989, however, they made a dreadful decision when they hired Tommy Lister Jr. to a full-time deal following his portrayal as Zeus in the WWE financed No Holds Barred movie. The issue was that Zeus wasn't willing to learn the art of wrestling, and Vince McMahon wasn't exactly pestering him to do so. Instead, the Hollywood hopeful was handed lucrative SummerSlam and Survivor Series paydays because he happened to be, well, rather tall and well-built. Furthermore, according to Jake Roberts on his Snake Pit podcast, Zeus reportedly distanced himself from the rest of the boys in the locker room and was being paid significantly more than they were, all while doing the very bare minimum. A complete bust in the ring, Zeus was ousted from McMahon's employment by the time the 1990 Royal Rumble rolled out, despite having reportedly been promised a year-long tyranny with the WWF Championship. Could you even imagine what that would have looked like? Number 2. Giant Gonzalez. The legitimate tallest wrestler in WWE history, the Argentinian-born Giant Gonzalez stood at a build 8 feet, leaving him without much room for movement between the ropes. So naturally, he was selected as The Undertaker's WrestleMania opponent for the 9th Showcase of the Immortals. It should go without saying that the match was a plague on the legacy of the streak, with Taker having this to say during an interview with Sam Roberts. That whole thing took years off my career. I would be in much better shape now if I could have skipped that one program. As physically demanding as it was twice as much as a mental strain because you have Bret Hart and Yokozuna going out and having these great matches. Obviously, you want to be mentioned in the same breath as those guys, and it was just not possible. Almost identically to Andre the Giant's babyface turn at WrestleMania 6, where he turned on manager Bobby Heenan, Gonzalez finally had enough of his manager Harvey Whippleman following an equally disastrous SummerSlam meeting with the Dead Man. But that's about as far as the comparisons go between the two. Simply put, Gonzalez didn't have what it took to be a functioning WWE superstar. And number 1, Jackie Gayda. And although several tough enough hopefuls were molded into fully fledged WWE superstars following their appearance on the reality series, such as The Miz and Chelsea Green, the success rate of the show's winners is, well, significantly low. Only John Morrison became a notable star, winning the ECW Intercontinental and Tag Team Championships, while Maven and Daniel Puder found recognition for more controversial incidents. No offense, Maven. Unquestionably, the worst winner of the lot, however, was Jackie Gayda, who co-won the second season alongside Linda Miles. Unlike Miles, who was sent to developmental and repackaged as Shaniqua, Jackie was instantly promoted to the main roster, where her weaknesses were quickly exposed. She appeared to wrestle every match as though it was her first day of wrestling training, but none was more notoriously terrible as her outing on the July 8, 2002 Raw. Teaming with Christopher Nowinski in a loss to Trish Stratus and Bradshaw, the match went off the rails when Gayda was legal. She botched every single move, the worst of which was a bulldog that she sold about a whole day too late. Once the match finally finished, not only was Trish visibly irate, but Jim Ross on commentary solemnly and infamously declared, "Mercifully, it's over." Somehow, she even managed to last another 3 years and was even brought back for the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal at WrestleMania 25. Luckily for her, Trish Stratus declined the invitation. But there you have it, folks. 10 WWE wrestlers who had zero ability. Who else should be on this list? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.